Are we good, Kelly?
We are good.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's program. Our presentation will be recorded. So in case you have to get up and leave or you have others in your company you'd like to see the webinar, not to worry. It usually takes about a day and we'll send everybody back the recording, the link, okay? If you have any questions, please put them in the chat area you see on the right-hand side. And if you don't see a chat area right now, just go to the bottom of your screen and you'll see chat. Just click that and it'll pop up. So if you have any questions, put them in there. Nobody's going to answer them though. Not just kidding. We're going to answer them after the program because we have so much in the program. We want to make sure we have time and we want to make sure the flow of the program is nice and smooth. So we will get back to everyone. As long as we know who it is and the question, we'll get back to you. And let us know who you'd like to have answer the question. Amin is the expert. You're gonna be meeting him in just a minute, okay? All right, our program includes a conversation with our three landscape business owners. You can see them in the room. You're gonna hear from them firsthand how they started their companies and the journey they've been on and how they built the success of their business, and some specific examples how they're using technology to benefit their company today. And you know, we did a little rehearsal last week. I tell you, I thought I knew about telematics. I don't. I learned a ton. So stay tuned. This is going to be great. Now you probably know me. I'm Ed LaFlamme from the Harvest Group, and I'm joined with Amin Amini. He's right there. That he's the one with the, is that the shiny? Oh, the waving. Never mind the shiny.
Yeah, that's me.
And he's a Verizon veteran. Amin has 20 years experience behind him, and he leads a team of global solution engineers for Verizon Connect across North America. And that's EMEA, that's Europe.
Correct.
Where else?
And Australia. So, you know, Verizon Connect is a global organization and we span many, many countries. And I have teams throughout the globe helping a lot of customers like the ones we're speaking to today with just solutioning and finding what can help their business really kind of come to the digital revolution and really change the way they do business.
Awesome. You can see he knows a little bit about this, and I think you're going to appreciate his presentation. He does help fleet organizations to streamline their processes, increase their efficiencies, improve their bottom line. And that's the bottom line. Amin comes with a wealth of knowledge that I'm sure you'll understand. And he's really a go-to expert within the organization itself, and he attends many industry events. So thank you all for joining us today. We have our three different companies, landscape owners. Chris Trower, maybe you could raise your hand there, Chris. And he's the founder of Diamond Landscapes in Lexington, Kentucky. Okay, and Mike Stanford, where are you, Mike? Okay, he's the president and owner of Complete Landscape Contractors in Indianapolis, Indiana. And last but not least, Bo Hartman. And he's the president of Hartman Landscaping in Zanesville, Ohio. Thank you so much, the three of you, for taking the time and being with us, because it's going to be a fantastic program. Before we begin, I'd like to have everyone get to know a little bit about you and your business. Okay, we have a few minutes for each of you. And why don't we start with Chris? Can you tell us about, you know, how you started your business and a little bit about it and where it is today?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to. I started mowing lawns, I think about 27 years ago, when I was 22 years old. And so we started with just basically mowing and kind of odds and ends and things like that. And then it transitioned to just out of necessity. And I had skinny kids. And so full service. And then we went all commercial. And then we added, we were doing quite a bit of lawn spraying, and I had about 1,000 customers, and we sold that in about 2009, and then transitioned really into all commercial with an emphasis on snow removal. So So
How many are working for you now, Chris?
this spring we'll have about 130 employees, and I think we have maybe 65 trucks in our fleet. So a lot of those are new, and we've made a huge capital investment over the last 3 years to transition to, to renew the whole fleet.
And you're in Lexington and
Yeah, that's correct. Our main branch is here in Lexington, Kentucky, the horse capital of the world, and then the others in Louisville, Kentucky, which is about 65 miles to our east.
fantastic. Okay, we'll look forward to hearing from you more. Bo, we'd like to ask you the same question. Are you unmuted?
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute there for some reason. So, I started just like any other landscape or most other landscape companies, I think. I was probably 16 or so, high school, just looking for a way to make some money, and had a couple mowers and truck, and spent my evenings and weekends mowing lawns, and went to college, got a degree in horticulture, and that was, had a couple guys working all through college, and then 2011 we incorporated, and things really kind of started flourishing from there. Today we have about 25 or 26 employees this season, I think, and then we run about, I think we have 13 trucks that we use. I think all of them but one or two have Verizon Connect on them, but we're primarily a maintenance company, focus on commercial maintenance. We do some residential maintenance as well, but about 50% of the business is maintenance, and the rest is design, build, and snow. So a little bit of everything for us.
Awesome. That's great. Fantastic. A real success story. And Mike? Are you unmuted, Mike?
I am now.
There you go.
Yeah, I started similar to Bo and Chris, and a lot of other landscape people out there. We started in 2008, and we've been fortunate to grow every single year. We only operate in just the greater Indianapolis area, and we're a commercial landscape maintenance organization. We also do snow, and we do a little bit of landscape installation. I believe currently, if all goes well, we should have about 80 to 85 employees this year. And I believe we've got about 50 units with the Verizon Connect GPS on it.
Wow. Awesome. That's awesome. That's music to Amin's ears. Now that we've learned a little bit about you, why don't we turn it over to Amin to ask you fellas some questions.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, guys. Good to see everyone again. Look, I think as Ed alluded to last week, we had a little bit of a rehearsal, and it's funny. I had emailed Ed afterwards and said how excited I was from the conversation, because oftentimes I work in this digital arena where I'm working with clients and talking about the widgets and the puts and takes of what software can do for a company. But I don't ever get a chance to really dig into the end result and how these customers are using it. And so thinking about Bo, Mike, and Chris, this is it. This is how software impacts an organization. I think I heard from all three guys that, they went from mowing on the weekends and nights and really call it a pseudo side job to a career, and now flourishing companies. And I think honestly with technology, that's how they're going to continue to grow, whether it's telematics technology, which is the topic today, or any other technologies in the future. So I guess I'll start with Chris. Chris, last week you and I had talked early on about how you guys are using telematics, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it. I'm curious, in your view, can you share with us one example of how you guys use telematics today, just kind of the necessity of it, and then do you have any stories around that by chance?
Who wants to go first? Bo?
I think he's having trouble getting unmuted.
Yeah,
No, you got it.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right. Let's start with Bo. It's totally fine. We'll wait for Chris to get off. Bo, I'm curious. So tell me about your organization. So why did you jump into telematics? And I'm just curious, how are you using it for your landscaping business today?
So I think the primary reason we initially looked into it was just we had some issues, and of course that's people tell you things, you see things here and there, but we had some issues arise, and we're just looking for a solution, and it seemed like a good fit. I was very skeptical at first, but after the first, I don't know, 2 weeks of having it on all the equipment, it was a huge eye opener. Definitely made some changes after we had utilized the equipment for a while. But for us, I think probably the most beneficial aspect of having Fleetmatics or telematics is the ability to reference our crew times on sites for time and material billing. We do a lot of time and material work, and it gives us a way to look back and see, crews are responsible for tracking time on job sites, but we all know things can get lost in the mix, and maybe not recorded properly. But that's the number one thing for us is the job costing aspect, especially for snow. Snow and ice management is just chaos, especially during any snow event. So we can go back and look for our time and material sites, and also for our per visit sites. As an owner, it's just peace of mind. It's peace of mind all the time. We can see when trucks start on the weekends or evenings. We know if people are driving safe, and it's just been a win for us from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think what's cool to me about how you explained it is, often people think of telematics as, hey, I can just see where my dots on a map are, where they were, simply just because of theft or loss prevention, which is a very relevant use case, by the way. But for you, you're looking at a different angle, right? It's kind of time to cash. It's proof of service for you, especially with winter operations and the time on site for companies. I think it's interesting, right? It's a unique perspective of using telematics because, yes, there's a map, and yes, there's dots on a map, but I'm guessing you're using all the analytical reports that you get out of it of, hey, where were they stopped at? How long were they stopped for? And being able to kind of geofence and look at those individual customers and sites, I'm guessing. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think we have a geofence on every donut shop in the surrounding 3 counties. And, that's things like that. It suggests geofences, which is actually really handy. Yeah. We try to limit crew stops during the day, except for lunchtime, and to be able to pinpoint some of those areas where you're having an issue with a crew, maybe driving across town to get lunch. Yeah. If you can wipe out 50% of those or 25% of those, or just wasted time for a crew of 4 people in a truck, it pays for itself instantly. It's again, I was very skeptical at first, but geofencing is great. It suggests geofence based on frequent stops and the reporting. We get, like myself and our operations manager, we get speeding reports and like driver safety reports emailed to us each week, and that's nice to look at and see that any harsh braking or cornering or idle time and things like that, and percentages of time spent over the speed limit. It's nice to see. So
yeah, and I think that to me that's the biggest point. I always go back when I talk to clients is, there's this like I don't know, cliche term, the people you hear it all over software industry called big data, or just a whole bunch of information, right, that you didn't have before. And whenever I talk to my clients, like we talk about, look, when you're inside your 4 walls, if all your employees worked inside your 4 walls, you would know what's going on. You can clock, you can figure out how much wasted time is there. Are they starting the work on time? Are they ending on time? Are they leaving early? You can see that. But once you have a business that your employees have to leave your 4 walls to do work, you don't have that big data. You don't have that information anymore. Outside of, there's of course the trust factor, and there's that base knowledge factor. But can you really validate it? And to grow a business, you gotta have the information and the facts to make fact-based decisions for growth and the next steps. Do you need more employees? Are jobs getting done efficiently? Are you billing for jobs with enough hours built in? That's all stuff that without big data, it's almost impossible to have. I love hearing the story of how you're using it. I think it's an interesting view of telematics outside of, well, telematics being dots on a map. I think that's pretty cool.
Right.
Chris, are you back on with us by chance? Do we have your mic
Yeah.
back on? Oh, there you are. So Chris, to you, back to you. I'm curious. So we just talked to Bo about how they're using it for big data and really for proving out job completions and time spent. How is your organization using telematics?
I think we're using it. We do random checks during the week. We have our field supervisors that just, if they suspect something, they want to see the breadcrumb trail, of course. Yesterday, we had an issue where the guys were gone. I had a 5-man team. They went to the China buffet. They drove 8 minutes away. They took an hour and a half. Comes 5 guys. So this was a costly lunch. And so the field supervisor was able to sit down and say, "Hey man, how long was the lunch? Did you enjoy the China buffet?" And they're like, well, how'd you know we were there? It's like, boys, we've told you a million times we have GPS on the trucks. And if something smells fishy, we're going to go check what that is. So that was yesterday. And so now they're talking about that and they're reducing time, because they put on their time card what it was, is there was a lost time incident right there. So it's just that, and then that's on the landscape side. That was yesterday. Then yesterday, we had another customer that challenged hours that we spent on for sidewalk teams. And so we were able to say, well, look, here's the timesheet, here's the time date stamp from our GPS. We were there exactly as many hours as we sent you. And so they can still buck the system. They can still not pay the invoice, but they're not going to call me dishonest anymore. Right.
That's
so
right.
We have the technology. And so those are just a few small ways, just since we spoke last week that we're proven, it's making us look more honest and credible.
Hey, tell everybody
I think
what
that's cool.
happened. Chris, tell everybody what happened. What was that, in December?
Oh, okay. Yeah. 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 I mean, I thought you were going to set me up for this. So we purchased, we've had about a 2.5 or $3 million capital investment by updating every truck, every salt spreader, every plow. And this is an arduous, like I'll never do it that quickly again. And so in our Louisville branch, my neighbor calls and says on a Sunday, he calls and says, your gate has been cut off and there's no trucks in your lot. And so we have 13 trucks in our branch in Louisville, and 10 of them are brand new. So everything that would start, someone cut, and 10 were brand new. So these are $53,000 trucks with plows and spreaders, so loaded with that stuff. I mean, they're 13, these are $66,000 losses, and we had 10, right? And so I called my son in a panic, and he says, "Hey, wait a minute, we've got GPS on everything." So my son gets on immediately, logs in, he sends me the app, and then we see our trucks moving around Louisville. I mean, this was, they tore the gate off or cut the gate off at 1 a.m. It was an organized group of 4 people, and they were making a racket. Brand new trucks. I mean, 3 had just been delivered. And so I call the police. That they get the information, they give chase, and there's 4 guys sitting in the state pen right now. I mean, it's a big deal. They'll at least do 12 years. The guy who stole the trucks, but for us, I mean, we would have literally had, insurance would have paid, but it may not have covered everything, and then you've got to go get some equipment and trailers. I mean, to say you have insurance that's not the way to go. Now, what had happened was our mechanics, we had a previous GPS system that wasn't as good as Verizon, and they left them on there that were visible on top of the trucks. I think they actually installed some dummy GPSs. However, the fleet, the Verizons are, you just can't rip them off. So we found a whole bunch of these in the lot. Well, they thought they were free and clear. And then, in Louisville, there were 15 or 20 cops and the rest of these guys, and we recovered every truck.
Such a cool story. I think, and there's, by the way, for the audience, there's so much more to Chris's story. He can go on for hours. Well, it's really tough for him, but for someone like me hearing it, I just couldn't stop shaking my head and just in disbelief. I guess, and one of the things that I asked Chris, and maybe it was ignorant of me not to know, but I asked, hey, but you have insurance. So what if they got away with 13 of your vehicles or 10 of your vehicles? And his response was, Amin, it's not about recovering the vehicle cost. Yes, I have insurance. It's the downtime. I guess, Chris, can you tell us more about kind of your view on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we have long-term relationships. It's a mom and pop organization. I started it. If a customer has a problem, I'll go out. And, I mean, at the same time, if I don't show up on Tuesday, somebody else will. And so, the relationships are there, and that greases the wheels, and a lot of us have those type of relationships. However, I mean, if you can't perform, or there's a 2-week span of, well, let me tell you some stupid story about how we got this incredible theft, and then monkey business, and then let me tell you again about how we can't do the turf edging, and your regional manager is going to come see it. It's just a bunch of shenanigans, and people don't want to hear about that. Not today, right?
Yeah.
Speed to market. Some of our CEOs for the big corporations that we manage their facilities, they have smartphones, man. They want to email back this afternoon, right? And so it's just really sped, the technology has really sped things up. And so the demand for service is greater than it ever has been. So to tell people, well, hey, our trucks got stolen. Let me tell you a sad story. Let me go find the equipment. Let me go purchase the mowers. Let me go. I mean, these concepts of capital improvement and capital replenishment, they take a couple of weeks, or if not a month or two, to get best price. And so then you're lost. And then the customer doesn't want to hear that. The customer just says, hey, I have the money. I chose you because I like you. Perform the job. And so for us, it's the downtime and the faltering and the lack of confidence that the customer has in a contractor. It's just priceless.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool storyline for you, in my opinion, is, talking to Bo, and his is about his big win is big data and proving out time and then trying to identify lost time, where for you, literally, it did what telematics should do. It helped you notify, hey, there's something going on. These vehicles are on at a time they shouldn't be. By the way, here's the location. You tracked it down using telematics. And I think, and Chris, I'd love you to tell the audience a story about how you use the mobile app in real time to find the people. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so in the current climate of American law enforcement, there's a lesser desire to get into high-speed chases and to arrest people for whatever reason. And so I'm sitting there. I have a car. I have a sedan, and it goes like 200 miles an hour. So I drive it as fast as I can to Louisville. So I'm down there. I mean, it's an hour and 10-minute drive. I'm there in like 28 minutes or something. And so I'm talking to the police. You had the $500,000 loss. You'd be driving fast. So I get there and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, look, man. I mean, they're moving. I mean, the theft is still in process. This isn't. You sit here and you relax. And he was a really good guy. And he pulled me to the side and says, hey, man, I understand. What you need to do is you need to go to where they are, find this one truck, and then you need to find the police that's close to that truck, and then hand them your phone. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, what am I paying tax dollars for? And he was really kind. He pulled me to the side and was super truthful. So I just bust out. And I catch the guy, and I'm right beside he and his girlfriend driving our truck in this theft. I'm playing sleuth. And so here I am, I'm looking at him, and then the dot has me right beside him. And so there's like 6 cops behind him, and he turns around in the freeway of five lanes of traffic. They had a helicopter, and it ended in a cornfield, and he's still in jail. So it was pretty dramatic, but I pulled over to the cop. This guy, it all sounds good that if you're going to go, well, we're going to catch these guys because we have GPS and they're going to stay on the road. Well, this was a 4-wheel drive 3500 Ram. I mean, it'll climb a mountain. So this guy goes through like 6 cornfields and busts 4 fences. And so I had to pull over and give the sheriff. It went across like 2 counties. In the second county, I pulled the sheriff over and says, hey, man, he ain't getting away. I have it right here. He's like, give me your phone. So my phone, they're in this high-speed chase for like 3 hours. They ditched the truck. They couldn't even find the truck. They knew it had stopped moving. So they had to go in the middle of a cornfield. I mean, it was like finding a needle in a stack of needles. And so, but we recovered the truck, you know, and
Amazing.
it didn't full pay on our insurance, you know, but they don't tell you, hey, if you have insurance until the second year and they cancel you for a $500,000 loss, right? And so none of it's a good thing, but we were able to literally pinpoint exactly where the truck was. The sheriff took my phone and then ran him down, and it was just, you know, mischief was managed, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a cool story, right? It's really, in my opinion, your use case of telematics is that fundamental, hey, can I locate my stuff when I need it at that moment? And in your extreme case, tracking down 10 of your stolen vehicles with that much value, right? And I think to close out kind of the initial part of our conversation, I found it interesting, your story on downtime and how telematics can bridge that gap, right? Instead of you dying out for 2 weeks and potentially losing clients, you recovered your stuff and showed up to work for all intents and purposes the next day as if it didn't happen. I think it's a cool story. I appreciate you sharing. And then to jump over, Mike, I haven't forgotten about you. Mike, I'm curious, how is your organization using telematics today? What's your use case?
We use our telematics pretty much with every feature that we can really try to get out of it. Obviously, the big thing is that we can open our main screen and we know right away where everything's at. That's really nice on a day-to-day basis. We really use ours for a lot of maintenance intervals, tracking mileage, mileage reports, idle times. We use some of the speeding and the driver safety features. Mm-hmm. Really, those are the main items that we use it for, and it's done a tremendous job for us.
Yeah, and I think that's usually, Mike, that's usually a common thing that a lot of telematics customers use, but maybe everyone doesn't think about, is that whole preventative maintenance scheduling and being able to service your stuff on time. It's neat how a telematics device can capture, whether it's on engine runtime, it's by odometer value, or it's simply by a time-based interval every 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, that you can set it up. So do you, out of curiosity, are you doing that only on your vehicles, or do you have it hooked up to any of your machines or equipment as well to do that kind of preventative maintenance scheduling?
Yeah, we generally, if we have Verizon Connect GPS hooked up to a vehicle, it's going to need service of some extent, at some time. So our trucks, that's pretty easy because it's either on a mileage or an hour basis. The good thing about those is they come back to our shop every night. So those don't really get too far out of hand on service, but we've had instances before we've had the Verizon Connect on some of our equipment to where we would have some of our equipment. I mean, it leaves our facility, this time, February, March, April. And if we're doing a good job of keeping it busy, it really doesn't come back to our home base until November, December at the end of the year. So Verizon Connect has helped us kind of monitor service, by an hourly basis for when those machines and that equipment is due. That way we can send a mechanic out, or if we need to bring it back to the shop for a day to get a routine service, we can do that. So that's been a huge help.
Yeah, look, I think, and I've heard this from many landscape companies, hardscape companies, construction companies, just like you mentioned, stuff goes out. And if we're doing a good job, like you said, it's staying out and it's working, and you don't have that visibility. I think telematics, to me, for equipment that goes out like that, it has two use cases. One, you know where you left it at, because if you have a good year, you have multiple jobs going out at one time and your stuff is spread. So now you can see, hey, I left it at this job. You can even run reports on, well, have I even turned it on in the last week? Because maybe job B needs that equipment, and you could move it from point A to point B. And then lastly, the whole scheduling of the service, even though it's kind of lost out of sight, you still know what's going on. I think it's interesting. You also mentioned alerts. Tell me, what kind of alerts are you getting, and how do you manage those?
Yeah, it's funny, kind of how we initially got set up with Verizon Connect is when we were talking with Ed and the Harvest Group, when we first started working together. It's been 4 or 5 years ago now. And recently, before that happened, we actually had a theft issue at one of our locations. And it was an overnight, typical, theft issue, like I'm sure a lot of landscapers have dealt with. Um, and since then, as soon as we had the Verizon Connect installed, we now have alerts set up to where, say if an ignition turns on between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., which would be not our normal either commuting or business hours, our managers will get an alert on that to where it really helps with, any nonsense that could be going on after hours with theft issues or, guys working late, things like that. It just really helps tie everything together.
And are you getting those alerts just kind of texted to you, or like how do you manage that kind of alert? I got to imagine, like, how do you know when you get an alert, you get notified? How do you get
Well,
that?
I think there are options for each manager to kind of pick and choose how they want to receive their alerts. But, I'm like everyone else, it seems like you've always got your smartphone in your hand. So text message is really convenient, because that way when you get it, it's right there in your hand.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to another client of ours, and they were talking about kind of that odd hours alerting, that off hours alerting of, hey, your stuff's on, but it's beyond the hour window you gave us. And I actually asked them, I said, why do you care? What's important to you for that? Their concern was their employees' use of their equipment for side jobs or personal jobs, which sometimes is okay, but overdoing that or misuse of that equipment, well, it harms their business because now it can tear equipment faster, it's faster intervals of maintenance and more maintenance costs. So I thought it was interesting where his wasn't a view of theft or loss, but it was the side work that's happening using company equipment, and it's costing the company money because of it. So I thought it was an interesting view of that kind of alerting. And then, Bo, I want to go back to you. I'm curious. So, you talked about, I think out of the crowd, you had mentioned the most about kind of using all the analytics and the big data sets that you can get out of the telematics platform. Have you jumped into video yet? Because I know that seems to be synonymous anymore with, hey, if you have GPS tracking, are you also seeing what's happening inside the cab or outside of the cab? Have you guys jumped into that space yet?
We have not. It's obviously, I think it's something that's coming down the pike for a lot of companies. At this point, for our organization, I don't think it's something we'll do right away, but definitely can see the benefits for that from a liability standpoint for the driver and the company. But we don't currently use any video at this point in time.
Okay. And Mike, what's your view on video for a company like yours? Have you guys thought about that kind of solution?
Yeah, we have. And I would say that we don't currently have any video units, but I would say that we're actively looking into that. It just seems to where it would be another tool in our belt to protect our employees and protect our company. Just because everyone knows that the more people get involved at your company, the more risk that there are for accidents. And if, one accident can ultimately affect the entire organization. And we would just view that as just another tool to protect our employees.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, you and Bo kind of share the similar thought, right? It's something that it's on your radar, but you haven't jumped in yet. And I think that's probably similar for the majority of our audience. And what I've seen, I've been in the industry a long time, and I've kind of watched the industry morph from having this thing the size of a suitcase in your trunk for GPS tracking to these little small black boxes and all the reports and graphs and dashboards. And I've seen cameras shift with it too, is what I find interesting. Like if I had an interview with the three of you just 3 years ago, or even 5 years ago, and asked about video on your vehicles, I would assume the first response is, look, that's Big Brother. I trust my people. There's no reason to monitor where they're driving or how they're swerving or how they're driving. I trust them. And I think that same statement still holds true 5 years later. You guys trust your people. That's how you're successful. But what video has done is that whole idea or concept of Big Brother has left the door, and the industry has adapted to really video's not about watching my employees and what they're doing and being Big Brother. It's about protecting my employees and my company, because right now, and like I think you mentioned it, by the way, is Mike, when an accident happens, God forbid it's a bad accident, that can impact your business, not just short term with a simple downtime, but long term with lawsuits and potentially closing your business because of an accident. And I've had use cases. It's interesting. Just a few months ago, one of our customers utilizing our solution got into a bad accident, and there was a fatality involved. But they were able to prove and exonerate the driver of the company that, in fact, it wasn't the driver's fault for this bad accident. It was due to that other driver swerving in front of them quickly and having a catastrophic thing. Now, it doesn't make the situation any better. Everyone struggles after that kind of accident, but it protected the company, and it simply exonerated the driver, that the driver did everything they could to get out of the way, and it was an unfortunate thing to happen. It's interesting how I've seen that shift go from big brother to no, it's another tool to protect myself and my company and my employees. And it's funny, we hear drivers now say, listen, I only want to get in a vehicle with a drive cam in it because I want to prove to you it's not me. I am a good driver. I'm a responsible employee, and I care about the company at the end of the day. So I think it's really interesting. And then, guys, I want to go back to the group, and I guess we can have a little group talk now. I'm curious, when you think about how you're using telematics, and it's interesting how the three of you have used it differently in your own ways for your businesses. What are your thoughts? Like, what is your next step with telematics? So knowing that this software platform can do a gazillion things, and you're using it for one or two or three, where do you see yourself taking a telematics software or system? What's your next iteration of it?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about some of the numbers too. That, as a contractor, our goal is profits, right? That's the scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting here thinking about how much we had on the road for a truck and trailer and 3 mowers. We don't use enclosed trailers. All the handheld equipment to get it on the road. It's about $88,000 a crew, and it's for a 5-man team is about $900 a day. And so, you multiply that per week, and this is all, we're shedding these dollars out with the hope of that they'd come back with profits. And so I just, we'd rather focus on the estimates and the customers and enhancements. I don't want to have to trust the employee. And I think it takes that, it's a given. Hey, we have GPS, here's your route. You have to go here, you have to do this. And so I don't want to be super type A and weird about it. But when you just look at the right angle and how it fits perfectly, that it's just about ensuring that we get the investment. Because, that crew itself, that's $3,600 a week. I just ran some numbers on, and so we're hoping to get our bait back plus something and catch a fish, right? And so, I think it's just giving a little bit of peace of mind that we can control some of the dumb taxes that come with what we do, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, Chris. That's exactly the answer that I get from most customers. It's hard for people to have a return on investment or ROI kind of mapped out in their head, but when they start doing the math backwards of their capital expenditure, their labor expenditure, and then look, there's always going to be 10, 15, 20% of that gray area that you assume that's kind of loss of time, loss of labor costs, loss of equipment. If you can minimize that by 10% on a fleet of 50 vehicles or on a labor force of 100 employees in one day, in 1 month, in 1 year, how much money is back into your business? I think to me, when I think of ROI, that's how my mind works, is take away from everything else, take the noise out, do your math backwards, assume what that gray area is. And if you fix simply 5% or 10% with some kind of automation, what does that do for your business? The numbers are staggering, man. I agree with you. Bo and Mike, anything for you guys?
I think something we might consider doing in the next few years. For snow, we have a lot of equipment that we either own or lease and park on sites for the winter time. Sometimes they're in different zip codes. So it would be nice, I think, to have something to monitor those pieces of equipment. Which leave in November around Thanksgiving and come back in early March or mid-March, right about now. And then the same thing as Michael was mentioning for the summertime as well. Our hardscape and install crews, those machines go out and they're gone all year. We come back to service them, and wash them, and then ditch them, send them right back out the door to go to the next job for 2 months. So I think that's something I'd kind of like to look into, is having a better way to monitor,
Yeah.
And see where those machines are, and make sure nobody's tampering with them at 2 a.m. on a Walmart parking lot or something. So I think that's something we're going to consider.
Yeah, and Bo, something I'll tell you, and it's for the greater audience as well. If you're in the business where, whether it's snow operations with kind of blade up, blade down, blade up, or it's spreader on, off, brine on, off, and you're dispersing something or doing a service, or even you think of things like sweeper machines, you think about anything that has a auxiliary thing that has to turn or go up and down. There's something I always try to inform my clients on, which is productive and unproductive work. So when you think about in your example of snow, think about a snow plow. A truck can be on, a truck can be driving, but is it doing productive labor? As in, is the blade down, or is the salt spreader on? So with telematics technology, something that's kind of next level, and you guys might want to look into, Bo, is you can add digital input wires. Essentially, wherever your switch is to turn something on or off, you can run a wire to it that now the software allows you to measure when was your vehicle on, and then when was your thing on or off. So now you can measure productive time versus unproductive time as far as working hours, drive time, and engine on time. I've seen a lot of construction companies, landscape companies, even municipalities use technology like this. It's unbelievable what you see when you start seeing vehicles in a snow operation example drive up and down a street 10 times through a pass without the blade ever being down. And you just think, how much fuel did I waste? How many person hours did I waste in that unproductive drive time? So I think when you're ready, Bo, and for the audience, it's something to look into. It's referred in the industry as PTO, but really it's just a digital input of off or on into the telematics box. I would challenge you to look into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Ed, back to you. I think, these guys, they amaze me every day. I wish I had their business smarts to hear they grew their company from literally one or two tractors and mowers and pieces of equipment to thriving businesses. Awesome. Just guys, I'm humbled. But Ed, back to you.
You really have. I've just wondered, Mike, you mentioned that you're using the telematics on your equipment. Is that right? You said you're
Yes.
doing that. Bo and Chris, are you doing that as well?
We are not. Trucks only for us at this point.
Yeah.
Trucks
Chris,
only.
are you doing it, Chris?
No, it's just trucks only on our end too.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Mike, what do you see as advantages that that you can point out to Bo and Chris as to why you're doing it?
Well, we've kind of touched on the maintenance item already. Another, it's really, with equipment like that, it's really peace of mind for us, because with us doing commercial work, it's not really sitting in the security nest of someone's backyard, to where like a hardscape contractor may have that luxury. Our equipment sits out on commercial job sites where everyone knows that, they're usually in rough areas once the moon comes up and the sun goes down. So it's really peace of mind for us, because when you think about it, I mean, everyone knows how expensive equipment is now, and not just a $50,000, $60,000 skid steer, but also attachments that come with that, to where, kind of like we talked back with our alerts that we have set up, it may hopefully prevent not only a machine from getting stolen, but any additional attachments. I mean, everyone knows that it's pretty easy to steal $100,000 worth of equipment in a very short amount of time, regardless if it's a piece of equipment on a job site or if it's trucks and trailers like Chris was talking about. So that's just a big peace of mind for us.
Yeah, I know. I have a client that said that he has telematics on all his major equipment because he just doesn't know where it all is. It's just the company's so big they just can't keep track anymore. So that way they can do it. And when I look back, this is BT now, before telematics. When I had my company, I had a $10,000 mower stolen, and then I know I was I found out about a compressor, one of these big air compressors that a friend of mine had, and it had been stolen from him. And these compressors are like $40,000. These big diesel compressors, and they're so easy to steal. So I think there's a lot of reasons why companies would want to put units on all that major pieces of equipment for a lot of good reasons. Would you agree with that? I mean,
Oh, without a doubt. I think, and look, candidly, these telematics systems and softwares, they're so robust, and it's really like an onion. There's so many layers to it. Whether you talk about location data, you talk about alerting data, you talk about driver behavior, analytics reports like hours worked and drive time summaries. But you can even go further into that, Ed, whether you talk about like field dispatching software, so you're no longer working with a pin board or a whiteboard and it's all electronic. And there's so much that you can do. It's kind of your term of BT before telematics and ATF telematics. I think really it's to me, I always think of a digital transformation of any software platform as a crawl, walk, run methodology. And I hear these guys, it's interesting to hear where out of the three persons we talked to today, Bo, Mike, and Chris, all three of them are in those different phases of crawl, walk, and run of telematics. And there's so much you can do to automate the business. Look, I know I represent the industry, so I might be biased, but it's truly amazing what you can do to automate a business.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure, Chris, that you have activated your off hours on all your units now.
Yeah. We have a few new skid steers, so we're looking into to adding those as well. So.
Yeah, because I'm sure you don't want all those trucks to disappear anymore without you being notified or your managers being notified that, hey, that truck just went on and it's off hours.
Yeah, it's that was I don't think I've ever had anything like that happen. I mean, you've had shenanigans, right? But I've never had anything like that happen before.
Yeah, I had another client in Maryland, and around that same thing around 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, he gets an alert on his from a text on his phone. He knew right away, so he called the police right away. Didn't even hesitate. Called the police right away, and he went to his shop. The trucks were gone. Equipment was on the trucks, and they just cut through the locks, opened up the door, and out they went. He made the mistake of leaving the keys in the trucks. So he really made it easy because he figured who's going to come and take the truck. But of course, the crooks didn't know that there was GPS in the trucks. So they just simply drove about 3 or 4 miles down through a road into the woods. And there his trucks were. The police were right behind him, and they got everything back. Apparently they were going to just leave them there till the next day and then come and take all the equipment off. And they didn't even want the trucks. They wanted the equipment on the trucks. So you can see that it's important to have the telematics units on the trucks and the equipment at this point. So that's been really good. I'm so happy that that you all could be with us today. It really brings it into our program. And we hope that all our viewers have really gained some insight on the importance of telematics. And if you do have it, the importance of utilizing all the functions. I think Chris learned the hard way, huh, Chris?
Yeah.
And if you'd like to learn more about the Verizon Connect's fleet tracking or somebody's integrated dash cams that Amin was talking about, the field service management or the asset tracking solutions. I love that wires on the switches. That's fantastic. There's Verizon Connect consultants that'd be happy to discuss this with you and really, walk you through it so you can really understand how it all works. And so I'd leave that to Amin. What should they do if they have these questions? I mean,
Well, take action. Go to VerizonConnect.com. You can request someone to be reached out to. As well, reach out to our Verizon Connect phone number that's published on the internet. As well, I'm sure we can send out after this to all the participants, Ed. But look, reach out. We have lots of consultants in our organization like me that can share their experiences of, hey, a company like yours and of your size, you might want to look at these types of solutions. Look, we can share our knowledge with you and hopefully help your company be in that AT phase of after telematics, like Ed said, and really bring you up to speed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to thank each of you, Chris and Bo, Mike, for being part of this. I know this is an extremely busy time of year. You're getting ready for spring. I know that. So I just want to thank you for the time you spent with us in sharing your experience with your company. And so that's all we have, folks. I want you to have a great day. And again, take Amin up on his offer of contacting the Verizon Connect folks to learn more about your systems. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.